Hi, my name is Leslie Davis, and today I'm going to share my journey as a heart mom, but I don't want you to forget about you. So, who is she? Well, that's me. My name is Leslie Davis. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in Illinois. I'm also a staff therapist at Washington University in the Heart Center, so I get to work with other heart moms. I'm also the founder and executive director of Hearts and Faith, which is a nonprofit in O'Fallon, Illinois, that serves single moms and youth. I'm a PhD student at Regent University studying counseling, and my concentration is in marriage and family therapy. And I'm a single mom and the heart warrior mom of Judah. So, who is he? Judah. That's my son. He's the best son I could ever pray for. He's an HLHS heart warrior. He has hypoplastic left heart syndrome. He's a percussionist in a competitive marching band. He's a YouTuber with over 10,000 subscribers, and his channel is Spidey Talks. You should check it out. He's getting pretty good at it. He's also a future coder and video game developer. So let me tell you a little bit about Judah's journey. So Judah is diagnosed with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. He's been through 4 open heart surgeries and multiple cardiac catheters. The most recent cardiac cath was done in December of 2019, the day after Christmas. His first surgery was when he was only 14 days old, and he stayed in the hospital for 2.5 months of his life. The other surgeries that he's been through, he had one, I believe, around 6 months old, one at 2 years old, and one at 3 years old. And every hospital stay was longer than expected. Things just kept coming up where they had to address, and it was a long time that he was in there. And because of that, because of the way that his life started out, it wasn't like other babies. So he had a late development, crawl until he was 2, and he didn't walk unassisted until he was 6 years old. So once he got enough strength to crawl and stand up, he had a walker, kind of like an old lady walker that he had behind him with wheels on it that gave him some support. But there was one day when I noticed he was kind of playing with it, and I took it from him and said, "You're going to hold my hand and start walking." And he did that and started walking on his own at 6 years old. Because of his journey and his heart condition, he's been in special education since the age of 3, with his eligibility being other health impairment. So Judah's a very smart kid. He's very intelligent, very likable. But because of the special needs that he has, which is, needing physical therapy, needing to go at a slower pace than his peers sometimes, he's in a special education program. So let's talk about Judah as a teen. So he's 16 years old as of today, but by the time you're seeing this presentation, he'll be 17. His birthday's at the end of March. So in the last few years, since he turned about 12 or 13, Judah has had multiple emergency room visits, and these are all unexpected health conditions that started to arise. Over the last few years, he's experienced chronic nosebleeds. And when I say chronic, he's having nosebleeds that last an hour to 2 hours. I think the longest was about 3 hours long, where we've been back and forth to the ER several days in a row just to get that under control. He's also started to develop some gastrointestinal concerns, where he sees another specialist for that. He often has fatigue. He's had multiple physical therapy appointments, and he's had physical therapy since the very beginning of his life. But he started to have physical therapy at school. But once he finished 8th grade, the high school did not necessarily provide physical therapy because he was doing so well. But recently, he started going to physical therapy at Children's Hospital. Because of his heart condition, he's not able to play sports because he can't play any contact sports. And so it's a little disappointing that he can't play basketball, which is his favorite sport. He does play with me. We do shoot around sometimes, but he can't play on a team. And now, the older he gets, he's starting to understand that his friends just don't understand what he goes through. So teen life has been a challenge for him, besides the regular teen life of, dealing with peer pressure or He's lost a few friends to suicide. But overall, Judah has had a very good life so far, and he's pushing through, and we just take one day at a time. So this picture here this is Team Judah. Um, we just happened to catch many of the specialists that have been a part of his life from day one. So in this picture, you'll see his previous cardiologist, Dr. Rahimi, another cardiologist in the corner. I forget their names, but I remember their faces. Some of the nurses that he's had since day one, and Barb, who you see on the far left in the back. She is part of Dr. Fiore's team, which is his surgeon. So I just listed here, the people that came to mind as part of Team Judah. There's me, grandma, other family, his friends, church family, his band directors, surgeons, cardiologists, his echo team, the pediatrician, physical therapist, speech therapist, occupational therapist, the ENT specialist, the gastrointestinal team, and several ER doctors. I listed the ER doctors and the ER team because we've been there so many times that they know us when we come in the room. We don't get special treatment per se, but they know when Judah's there and they take good care of him. So what about me, right? Am I selfish for asking that question? Sometimes I ask myself, is it selfish to think about me when my child is going through so much? So let me tell you about my journey as a heart mom. I got pregnant at 22 years old. I was a college graduate. I got pregnant a month after I graduated from college. I was still living at home with my mom. I had just started my career as a social worker. I was working in the child welfare system in Illinois, and I loved it. And I got pregnant, and I had my first ultrasound. I think it was around 20 weeks, which is pretty normal. And I was so excited to see my baby on the screen for the first time. And then there was silence in the room. And I remember the doctor coming in and saying, "We need to have a talk." And the doctor said, "Your baby has a heart problem. We need to send you to another hospital to get checked out." That kind of shook me. I didn't know what that meant. Again, I'm 22 years old at the time. First pregnancy. I didn't know what to expect. So now what? I had a high risk pregnancy. I didn't know what to expect for that. I felt alone. Judah's father wasn't there. He lived in a different city. So I was going through this by myself. I had multiple doctor's appointments. I would say more than the average mom with a regular pregnancy. So not only was I seeing my doctor, but I had to go to Cardinal Glennon so they could check on Judah's heart while he was in my womb. During that time, because I didn't know what was really happening, I had to trust the doctors, my own and my son's doctors. And then I was diagnosed with preeclampsia near the end of my pregnancy. I didn't know what that meant. It wasn't until after I had my son that I realized how dangerous that was for me. I could have lost my life. But during my pregnancy, I was afraid of the unknown. And then my heart warrior was born. I had an emergency C-section. The day that I went in for just a regular checkup with my doctor, they checked on Judah and he wasn't moving. And I'll just, you can't see how tall I am, or how short I am, I should say, but I'm only 4'11". I'm very tiny. And Judah was a big baby. He weighed 8 pounds, 8 ounces when he was born. So the day that I went to my appointment, he wasn't moving. He really didn't have any room to move, but because of his heart condition, they were very concerned. So I had to go straight to the hospital, and they prepped me for delivery. That was scary. I didn't know what was happening. That wasn't my birth plan. I was told, back and forth, like, you're going to have a C-section because of his heart condition. And then I was told, well, you can have a natural birth because you're healthy. But that's not what happened. I had an emergency C-section. I was scared. I was, with my mom. Judah's dad was there. But I remember that day just being cold, being scared, wanting to see my baby. I couldn't see what was happening. There was a sheet in front of me, and all I could hear was him crying. And because of his heart condition, he was ripped away from me so quickly that I didn't get a chance to hold him. The only memory I have of that time is being able to hold his hand. Rather, he held my pinky. So he was holding on to me. I didn't get a chance to hold on to him. And then he had to get flown off to Cardinal Glennon because he was a high risk baby. He had a heart condition and they had to get him ready. Um, so during that time, the first couple of days, I felt afraid. I was anxious. Again, I was alone. I was in the hospital all by myself. My mother, I thank God for her, she was able to go to Cardinal Glennon with Judah as an infant, and she stayed by his bedside because I couldn't be there. I was in the hospital myself for a week because I kept a fever. So that was scary. Not being able to see my child, not having that typical birth experience where I held him on my chest. Um, it was strange. I didn't know what to do. I felt helpless. But I also remember being hyper focused when I was around him. So when I did get a chance to finally go to the hospital and see him, all I could do was focus on him. I didn't focus on myself. I didn't focus on what I needed. And I was stressed, but I put on a good face. Why? Because I always had peace. But really, no one knew how I felt. Why is that? Because I didn't tell them. I didn't show them. Why? Because it wasn't about me. It was about my baby. All I cared about was, is he okay? I forgot about me because my heart warrior needed me. So let me tell you about the struggle. The struggle is real, which is a recent of us in the ER waiting to be seen. I was tired that day, had a long day at work. Um, it was another unexpected trip to the ER. And I think this was probably the second or third day in a row that we had been to the ER for some nosebleeds. So I was tired. I was exhausted. It was a struggle. So let me tell you about some of the struggles that a heart warrior mom will go through. And this is only, I can only speak to my own experience, but I'm sure that there are other heart parents that can identify with this. So over the years, and especially in the beginning, I had to answer so many questions from friends and family. Some of the questions, there were other babies born around the same time as Judah that went to my church. And the question that I always get was, well, when's he going to crawl? When's he going to walk? I don't know. I don't have magical answers. I knew that his development was different from other kids because he was still 2 and not crawling yet. Other kids were playing and running around and climbing up the stairs, and he could barely even get up on his knees because he was just physically weak. He couldn't do it. Having so many questions to answer about, well, how did he get this? What happened? I don't know. There wasn't a lot of information out at that time about how HLHS even developed. Um, and that's still questions that I have. So along the way, there's so many questions that arise from people that are not part of our struggle, part of our journey, and I just don't have them. Another struggle is managing work, all the medical appointments, his physical therapy, speech, occupational therapy appointments. From the very beginning, I wasn't at my job long enough to qualify for FMLA. So I actually had to go back to work early. I only got 5 weeks off, but I did what I had to do because I had to take care of my son. Again, it wasn't about me. I forgot about me, but the focus was on him and what he needed. So I did what I had to do. Even, throughout the years, managing time to take off or, when you go to the doctor as a heart mom, you're there pretty much all day with all the testing that has to be done. And then there's those, occasional ER visits where you're at work and then an hour later you get a call from the school, Judah's not feeling good. Okay, I got to leave work. I got to go run and pick him up. I got to get him to the ER. So managing my work life and all of his medical appointments, it's a struggle. There's also keeping track of all his medications. When he was younger, again, I was 22 years old. I never had any health issues where I had to take medication every day. So this was new for me. I had to make a chart. I had to make sure I didn't forget to give him a medication or that I didn't overdose him or not give him enough. It was a lot to think about. Then there's managing all the ER visits, unexpected hospitalizations. I think in the past 2 years, he's been in the hospital twice unexpectedly. And you just, you make adjustments and do what you have to do to take care of your heart warrior. Another struggle is finding someone that I trust to take care of him while I'm at work. When he was an infant and he couldn't take care of himself, he couldn't talk, he couldn't walk, he couldn't do anything for himself. I had to trust someone to watch my child who had a heart condition. That was hard for me. But I thank God, God always put the right people in my path. And the person that ended up babysitting him was actually someone who used to babysit me. So if I knew she took care of me, she was going to take good care of my child. So while he was growing up, when he was around 2, I decided I wanted to do better for myself and for him and create a better path for us. So I went back and got my master's degree. In my master's program, Judah had 2 surgeries and he was in the hospital for a month at a time, both of those surgeries. So throughout my 2 years of my master's degree, we were living in the hospital at Cardinal Glennon. I was working full time. I was in a master's degree program full time, and I was being a mom, a heart warrior mom, full time. Another struggle was always worrying, is he going to make it to be an adult? I heard so many stories of babies dying with this condition, um, not knowing, how long he was going to live. I remember even as an infant, a lot of people would make suggestions like, oh, you can buy clothes that are just a larger size for the next year so you can save money. And I really wanted to do that, but there was this fear that I had, this anxiety I had about, is he going to even live till next year? I don't know. So I remember buying this racer jacket. It was a black race car jacket, and he loves cars. And I bought it when he was a baby, but it was a size 3T. I'll never forget that. And I was scared to purchase it because I'm like, is he even going to make it to 3 years old? I don't know. But I thank God that, Judah has done well. He's had some bumps in the road, of course, but he's doing well and he's about to be 17. We're almost to adulthood. We're going to make it. I thank God for all the advancement in medical technology as well. So he's going to be okay. Another struggle that I still struggle with this. I just don't tell anybody about it. But I always, sometimes feel anxious when he's not with me. Is he okay? That's the only thing that's in my mind. Is Judah okay? Even when I'm at work, I mean, he can take care of himself. He knows how to recognize the signs when he's fatigued, when he needs to take a break. He's able to verbalize these things to the people that's around him. But of course, me just being a mom, this is a typical mom struggle, but I think it's a little deeper when you're a heart warrior mom, but always feeling anxious when he's not there, when I can't see him. And then I'm always wondering, am I doing enough? I've always wanted to push him. I always told him, like, you might have a heart condition, but you're no different from anybody else. You can do whatever you want. Even though he didn't crawl on a regular pace or he didn't walk, at regular times, he was doing everything else that he wanted to do. And he still does that. He may have limitations, but I always, struggle with myself. Like, am I pushing him enough? Am I doing enough? Am I providing enough for him? And he always tells me, Mom, you're doing a great job. You're the best mom. So I appreciate that. So throughout the years, I've had to remind myself, don't forget about you. While even making this presentation, I had to ask my best friend, because she was there from the very beginning. She's Judah's godmother. I had to ask her, what was I like during that time when he was first born? And she said, you were very direct. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she just told me that, I was so focused on him that I didn't really think about myself. And there were many days when we were stuck in the hospital for that first 2.5 months of his life that she had to remind me to eat. She said that there were days that I went without food because I was just so focused on being there for him. I didn't take care of me. And I thank God that I had a strong support system that recognized that I needed certain things, that I just needed someone to take care of me as well. I've also had to remind myself, just because you have a child with a heart condition, that doesn't mean you can't do what you want to do. So I always remind myself to pursue your dreams. And I have, over the last 3 years, I've gotten a master's degree. I'm a PhD student. I'll be a doctor within the next year, hopefully. I started a nonprofit. I continue to help people in my community. I do what I want to do because I want to be a good example for my son that he can do what he wants to do no matter what. And so that's the next thing that I remind myself of is I'm setting the example for him that he can be strong and courageous in the midst of a storm. Doesn't matter what we're going through, we can push through it, we can still be strong, and we can fight through it. I always remember to look for the good. There's so many scary moments being a heart mom. Um, but I always remember to look for the good. Those good things could be, I remember one time when he was in the hospital recovering from a surgery, and when he got his chest tubes out, that was a good moment. When he got off a breathing machine, that was a good moment. When he was able to start blowing bubbles, that was a good moment. So always look for the good. And of course, I always trust God and I never give up. So guess what? I want to tell you that you can do it too. So I am a therapist. So I will bring out the therapist within me to share some tips with you about how to take care of yourself. So one thing is give yourself permission to admit that you're not okay. I remember there were times where people would ask me, "How are you doing?" And of course, I'm saying, "Oh, I'm fine." But was I really fine? Maybe I was just trying to convince myself of that. So I think looking back, if I would have been honest and say, I'm not okay, I'm tired, I haven't slept, I haven't eaten anything, I'm hungry. If I would have really taken time to check in with myself, I would have been able to take better care of myself. Don't forget to reach out to your support system. So the thing is, your support system is there, and a lot of times they don't necessarily know what you need or how to help you. So don't be afraid to speak up and speak out and tell them, hey, I need some coffee, or I just need a break. I need to be able to go outside. Can you stay here with my son or my daughter? But reach out to them, send them a text, just check in because they may not know if you're ready to talk or what you want to talk about. So that's on you to reach out to them. Good thing to do, especially if you're in the hospital with your heart warrior, is take a walk. Get away from the bedside. It's okay. They're going to be okay. There's nurses there that'll take good care of them. It's okay to take a break and get some fresh air. It's good to, you get stuck in that room with that circulated air. It's good to get outside for a little bit. Don't forget to eat. We need food. As simple as that. Another self-care tip is take a bath, a hot bath or a hot shower with some essential oil infused soap. I mean, it's a simple fix for aromatherapy. It may be, the sound of the water that makes you calm or the warmth of the water that makes you calm, but the essential oils infused with that, it's relaxing. So maybe some lavender or peppermint or eucalyptus, whatever you prefer. One thing that I like to do is listen to music. I remember many days where I would drive from the hospital to, going back home to get another set of clothes. And I would just, listen to music in the car, sing my heart out, get home and dance a little bit, dance with Judah. We love to have dance battles at home. So that's one of those enjoying the moments and looking for the good too. Don't be afraid to talk to a friend or a relative who will just listen to you. Sometimes, we need to tell people, like, I just need you to listen because they may want to give us advice and they may not have the best advice because they're not going through the struggle with you. They don't understand completely. But just find someone that you can trust that will really listen to you. And don't be afraid to cry. Crying is not a weakness. It's really a cleansing. And when we hold in our tears, that's creating more pain and more trauma on our bodies. So it's okay to cry it out. There are many days that, especially when Judah's in the hospital and I have to take a break, I have to go home and check on my dogs or whatever. I might cry in the car. Nobody sees me. It's just me and God in the car. But it's good to just let it out and let it go. And another thing that I think is important that will be helpful, not just in the moment, but over time, is journaling. I like to do video journals. So before YouTube came out, I had a camcorder that I would take to the hospital with me. And part of that was to not only release the things that were on my mind, but I wanted to document for Judah all the things that he's been through. So I recorded every surgery that he had, every stage of his recovery, even when he got home, his birthdays. Um, just these random moments that I don't want to forget and I don't want him to forget. So journaling could be through video. And a lot of people, if you have a smartphone, it's easy to do that. You can do audio recordings on your phone, or you can get a journal and write it out. And those are the times to just remember and enjoy the little things. So here are some tips of things that, I found helpful to avoid during this journey as a heart parent. One is talking to people who may not understand and don't care to. You can tell people, oh, my son or my daughter has a heart condition and I have to do this and this. And they may just look at you like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand that journey, but thanks for sharing. So when you meet someone like that, just recognize like maybe they're not the best person to share your journey with. And be mindful of repeating your story. That can cause more stress. So when you're telling one person, this is what's going on, this is an update, and then someone else calls, okay, this is what's going on, this is the update. It can get tiring and more stressful the more you talk about it, the more you repeat yourself. Because what I have found is that, it was tiring to say the same thing over and over, but telling the story over and over also created more stress for me because I was thinking about, oh my gosh, every time I heard it, I'm like, this sounds really bad. So just kind of be mindful of repeating yourself. Try to avoid blaming yourself or punishing yourself for not knowing what to do. Like, you're not the expert. Yes, you're the expert on your child, but the doctors are kind of in control. Not necessarily in control, but they know what they're doing, and you're not the expert in that area. So don't blame yourself for not knowing what all the terminology might be, for not understanding how the hospital system works. Don't punish yourself for not knowing how to best help your child. Another thing to avoid is, ignoring your symptoms of depression or anxiety. So what you might find yourself doing is maybe you're not sleeping or you just want to sleep all day. Those are symptoms of depression. The anxiety, you might feel pain in your chest or in your stomach. You could develop ulcers. You might have frequent headaches. You might feel tension in your shoulders and your neck. These are all symptoms of depression and anxiety. When you hear the beeping of the machines in your child's medical room, and you hear the beeping outside of the hospital, and that's a trigger, those are some symptoms that you need to address. So don't ignore that stuff. And another thing to avoid is feeling pressured to live like parents who don't have a child with CHD. So this is your journey. You can't compare yourself to a parent who has a child who has no heart condition or who has no special needs. Your journey is different. You have so many things on your plate. I mean, you saw before all the people that are involved in your child's life, Judah's team, it was a whole list of people. Those are just teams. Those are not individual people. So try to imagine, keeping all that information in your head. And then there's a parent who has to do none of that. Their life is much simpler. So you can't compare your journey to theirs. So finally, I just want to, share some of these pictures here. This is Team Judah. That's what we call ourselves. It's just me and him. He's my ride or die. The picture you see here on the left is he was in the hospital and he was supposed to be in that hospital bed. You might see in the corner, but because we're so connected, he's like, Mom, I just want to sit with you. I almost got into bed with him, but he's getting too big now. He's taller than me finally, but we just want to stay close because we're all we have. So, but what I have to remind myself is that, his journey is my journey. I'm right there with him. My experience as a parent is different from his of the heart warrior going through it. But I have to remember that I can't forget about me.